so we got a decent warm day here. I figured I'd update you all on what we're doing with this thing. I haven't even hardly looked at it. I literally pulled it off the trailer and parked it in my driveway here, and I just kind of started where I noticed issues, which was with the running. If you watch the video, it would run poorly with the choke off, but it would idle and run decently with the choke on until you use the hydraulics, and then it would bog down. But I decided to pull this rear cover off, and people are correct that the bolts are a little bit of the pain in the ass. The main issue is how long they are. They could literally be, you know, an inch long bolt and be fine, because they just go through that thin metal and then thread into the welded on nuts on the back side of this. So shorten them up would make it easier if you aren't doing the hinges. First thing I noticed is people were complaining about the choke cable, which on this one you can see it is functioning correctly. Right there is choke off, have the butterfly valve open, and when I pull this all the way up, it does pull all the way over to choke on, so that is working properly. It's kind of a janky setup, but what do we expect? And the cable is rubbing right here on the frame. You can fix that by disconnecting the choke cable and running it on the outside of this frame mount here, and that would give it more slack to wrap around in this carriage down here instead of coming straight up and having, it has pressure on it from that way pushing against it, so if we ran it in there, it would have less of an angle, less pressure. I'll work on that later. Another thing I noticed as soon as I got that off is this, let's see if this is in Chinese, or it should be, it's on the Briggs & Stratton engine, but they left that on there. Obviously nice to have a pull start, but definitely don't want to leave this hanging on there with all the heat that gets in there. I imagine that could probably catch on fire or something. As far as I can understand that this is saying, it says go to school, read books, don't become a mechanic that has to fix check engine lights, and then it's gonna be cold today. We'll say that, and take the air filter cover off. Hopefully there's an air filter even in the things. There is a filter, that's good. It should be a pre-filter foam with a paper inside filter. Wouldn't hurt to, it actually does have a little bit of oil on it. Impressive. So I've got the air filter off, and I forgot to tell you all that I looked down at the fuel tank and not super impressed. It looks like, it's not terrible. It actually looks worse on the camera, but there is some stuff in there and possibly some rust on that metal tank. So that's also, this gas cap is absolutely unnecessarily massive. I guess that makes it a little easier to grab onto though with A-pans. But I am going to say when I have the carburetor off, I'll go ahead and drain all of the fuel out of this, clean this tank out, and put some fresh fuel in. And in case anybody was wondering about this janky mechanism here, it is in fact the throttle control, the speed. You can see when I move the lever, it moves to the rabbit and then to the turtle. To access the carburetor, obviously you got to remove these plastic pieces. There's a bolt here, and I'm going to go ahead and take these off too. That's just the choke cable, and I'm going to fix that anyway, so I might as well pull that off. And there's one right here. Looks like one up there too. And here's an example of how entirely too long the bolts that hold the body together are. So I took the choke cable mounting plate off. I just wanted to show you this. That's just next level engineering, guys, is all that is. So I pulled this outer plastic piece off. You can see there is no inline fuel filter. I will be putting one on there. It comes straight out of the tank there, down to the carburetor. This here is just a fuel shut-off switch. And I'll go ahead and tell y'all right now, to get the carburetor off, these are way too big for how small of a diameter these bolts are. There's going to be a lot of people, when they tighten these back up, break these off. I can call it right now or strip them out. So with this big a nut on here, be careful, tighten them up. There's also a crankcase vent coming out of the valve cover here going into the airbox. So when you put this back together, don't forget to hook that back up, or you'll have oil ending up down here in your pan. When you get the airbox off, there is a plate with a rubber seal on it. Do not, when you install that back, there are grooves. I don't know if you can see. Yeah, they go into there. Make sure you get it perfectly lined up or you'll have an air leak. There's also a gasket on the other side. This is the choke here. You can see it does fully function correctly. Hose it all. When you do take the fuel line off, I would have a rag ready down here just to catch as much as you can that's gonna run out of the hose, because the paint on these is dog shit. And to disconnect your throttle, obviously you can take this little spring out very easy, but this piece, people may struggle to get out of there because this doesn't open up all the way. Slide the carburetor to the end, and you can open it up enough. Hard to do with one hand, but you get it out there far enough, you can open it enough that will come out. Also, there is a gasket on this side. Try not to damage that or lose that. I'm just gonna leave this one on there while I'm doing this. And then just pull the carburetor out. Very simple. I'll show you some things to look